Hey everyone, it's Samantha Lacroix here from eXp Realty. I'm here to chat today about the best areas to live in the Alberni Valley. Now, obviously everybody has differences in opinion about the different types of areas that they want to live. Some people want to live in the city. Some people want to live out in the rural communities. I'm going to go through all the areas in the Alberni Valley so you can decide which ones make most sense for you. So first off, I'm going to start out of town. I'm going to start at Sproat Lake. Sproat Lake's kind of one of those anomaly areas where it's a lot more expensive, obviously, to live if you're going to want to live directly on the lake. There's a lot of people that live there part-time, which definitely drives up some of the prices out there. But obviously it is beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful lakes on the island. Has a lot of draws for people coming up from, say, Victoria or Vancouver. There's a lot of other upsides. Even if you don't live directly on the lake, you're super close to Provincial Park or some of the accesses to the backside of the lake. There's also a couple other lakes back there like Namint and Henderson. They're really beautiful as well. So if you live sort of close by in that vicinity, you would have closer access to get back there. If you like to surf, you're about an hour to one of the closest beaches in Tofino. There's also some great camping spots out there too. Maybe you don't want to live out there, maybe you just want to go visit. There's a couple cool falls out there. You've got Snow Creek Falls, which is on the backside of Sproat Lake, and then there's also Weiner Falls, which has some great hiking trails there as well, and it's really awesome to be able to hike right down to that waterfall. You can jump in the water and go for a swim. Now, some of the cons to living out in that Sproat Lake area would definitely be that proximity to towns. You're going to be farther away from grocery shopping and those sorts of amenities. If you do live right on the lake, you're going to get some of that boat noise. You're going to get that busyness in the summer. It's definitely going to be quieter in the winter, and I still see people out there boating. We got pretty mild weather, so you can kind of do it all year, and there's so many beaches to explore. It's a really super beautiful area. So we might as well do all of the rural areas. And so next we're going to talk about Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek is one of my favorite areas. It's a really massive part of the Alberni Valley, and it stretches all the way out to the Beaufort Mountains. Now, if you're looking for an acreage or looking to start a little hobby farm, then Beaver Creek is probably the spot for you. You're definitely not going to have the proximity of neighbors in most of the properties that are out there. The taxes are also cheaper, but you also might run into some ALR zoning, which is agricultural land reserve zoning. So you may not have the flexibility for subdivision, even if you do have a bigger property. Then there's some really great hiking spots out there. You can also go see Stamp Falls Provincial Park. There's great camping. There's also Anglers Trail, which stretches from Stamp Provincial Park all the way out into Beaver Creek. If you're looking for a little bit more of a rural feel, that's what you're gonna get out there. Now, some downsides, of course, similar to Sproat Lake, that you're gonna be far from town, so you're probably going to be at least a 10 or 20 minute drive if you need to, say, take your kids into school, or you forgot something and you need to head into the grocery store. You're definitely going to have that little bit more of a drive than you would, say, if you lived in town. Other downsides is that you're likely going to be on well and you're going to be on septic, so those are things that you're responsible for. They might be more expensive if you do need to, say, replace them or drill a new well, but really, again, it just depends on what type of style of property you're looking for. Now, one of the points I had was that you don't really have that neighborhood community feel when you're in those properties that are farther out of town. So that might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're looking for. If you don't want to have neighbors, then obviously that's a good thing. But if you like that you have neighbors where you need some sugar, you need some eggs, then that might be a little bit different out there. But there is the Beaver Creek Hall, and they have dances and they have some more events out there. And now we're moving on to Cherry Creek. So similar to Beaver Creek, but it is a little bit closer to town. So you're not going to get that 20-minute drive as you would in some of the areas of Beaver Creek. It's quite close to town, but it's also a lot smaller. So there's not as many properties, but again, they are generally a little bit bigger. You get cheaper taxes again. You're super close to the golf course. So if that's something that you're into, you could possibly have a property that's close to the golf course and maybe walk there. It's kind of nice. And then same thing as Beaver Creek, likely you're going to get septic. I believe some of the properties are on regional district water, which is similar to Beaver Creek as well. But depending on which area you're in, you may have to have a well, likely septic in all of those areas. And then also I have found that since it is a smaller area and it is a place that people like to be because it is close to town, but you'd have that rural feel, that sometimes it is a little bit more expensive comparatively to other areas. Now we're moving into the city itself, up to North Port Alberni. So this is actually the area that I live in. It is one of my favorite areas, but that I'm just might be biased. North Port has a couple of great schools. There's the French immersion school. There's a couple couple of other elementary schools, as well as a full French school. We found that if you're doing renovations, it's really nice to be on this side of town because you are closer to the shops. And there's Home Hardware and Beaver Creek, Lumber, as well as Windsor are all on this side of town. So yeah, if you are doing renos, it does kind of suck to have to drive all the way from the other side of town. Say if you need a bag of nails or something, it is nice to have that proximity to those stores. There's a couple grocery stores on this side as well. You have a couple breweries. So Alberni Brewing as well as Twin City Brewing are both on this side of town. So from my house, it's about a 10-minute walk to either of those breweries. So that's always nice to have. Another one of my favorite features of this side of town is there's a lot of 60s and 70s era homes, which are generally bigger. They're really solidly built. So at that time in the mill, building houses, there was a lot of massive pieces of lumber. So if you go into the basements of a lot of these houses, you will see the beams are just ridiculous. That's the style of house that I like. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I do find that those 60s and 70s style houses are very, very solidly built. And then comparatively to say Beaver Creek or Cherry Creek, you're gonna get a little bit smaller lots. There are some double lots on the Northport side of town, but generally you're not gonna get the acres or higher once you get into the city. Moving on over to Central Port Alberni, we've got the high school, you've got the library, the pool, all of those sorts of amenities. So if you're in that area of town, you may be walking distance from those things. There's also grocery stores. You have the Harbor Quay, which is really wonderful. You got the downtown core, Argyle and Third, where there's a lot of new businesses expanding. So there's cute coffee shops, there's another brewery, you got Dog Mountain Brewery there as well. Central Port Alberni is sort of split up as well. I would say there's sub areas within that area. Anything above 10th is going to be different than anything that's sort of below 10th. There's some heritage style houses sort of in that lower 10th area. And then you've kind of got those 60s, 70s style houses above 10th. But again, that sort of also depends on which area you're in. But if you have any more questions about specific areas or specific streets, I'd be more than happy to go into that with you. Now, no one really talks about this area, but it is sort of an up and coming area in Upper Burde. So there's some new developments going on there. There's phase 1 and phase 2 already. And then there is also new development going on. Where the old high school used to be. So there's a bunch of new houses, townhouses up in that area. And there's also new apartment buildings, rentals as well. Some of the benefits to being in that Upper Burde is that it's a newer development. So you're gonna get newer houses. Houses are going to be covered by warranty, the higher price point as well. So you're going to get a different demographic of people that are living up there. A lot of older people and or say younger families that are in those areas. It's more expensive as well because you're moving into a new subdivision, newer houses. The taxes are a bit higher as well. But there's a lot of trails up there which are really beautiful. As I talked about, the downsides, the higher taxes. You're probably not within walking distance to schools going down the hill there. So I mean, you're walking uphill to get home. And then again, it really depends on the style of your house. Some people really like character houses. Some people like me like the 60s and 70s style. If you're really looking for something that's hands off, you don't want to do a reno, a place like that might be better for you. So yeah, there's a lot of good things and there's a couple bad things, but that's going to be with any area, and really mostly that just comes down to what your preference is. And last but not least, we have South Port Alberni. So that's going to be in the southern area of Port Alberni. It's sort of similar to Northport in terms of styles of houses, really nice neighborhoods, family style neighborhoods. There's a couple of schools, elementary schools around in that area as well as a couple daycares, which is nice too. There's a bunch of parks everywhere, which is also awesome if you do have kids. A lot of parks that would be walking distance from a lot of the neighborhoods there. There's also a bunch of mountain bike trails and hiking trails, walking trails, really flat, nice trails for taking a stroller, which is awesome. And that's on the east side of Port Alberni. And then down in the south end of Port, you also have Canal Beach, which is really awesome. That's kind of one of our main beach access areas. It's where they do the polar dip for New Year's. And the city's built this really nice gazebo. There's a fire pit there as well. There's also beach volleyball courts, which is one of my favorite things. And then a couple of the downsides, again, city taxes, because you're going to be in town. You're a little bit far from shops. So if you are doing renos and you need to go drive say over to the hardware store, it is on the other side of town. I mean, I really say this, but it's Port Alberni, so really everything's only like 10 minutes away. If you lived in the city, I'm sure it would be more like a half an hour drive. There's no traffic, so there's nothing to complain about. And then there's a couple of other areas sort of surrounding, little rural areas on the way to Bamfield. You've got Franklin River Road and different areas like that. If you have any more questions specifically about those areas or about any of the areas that I've talked about today, I would be more than happy to answer any of your questions about them. Feel free to leave a comment or a question about any of the areas, or send me an email, send me a text. I got all my information below if you look below the video. Thanks so much for joining me today and learning about all the different areas in the Alberni Valley. I will talk to you soon, and please, anytime you want to come visit, let me know. More than happy to show you around.